The story of Cal Jacobs from the television show Euphoria is a story about a house that looks perfect from the street but is rotting inside. For years, Cal built a life that was, on the surface, the picture of success. He had a beautiful home, a seemingly stable family, and financial security. But this life was a carefully constructed mask, a fortress built on a foundation of secrets, shame, and lies. His entire identity was a performance. He performed the role of the stern father, the provider husband, and the respectable businessman. Yet, underground, in the literal and metaphorical basements of his world, he lived a secret life of recorded, anonymous encounters that were a desperate and conflicted expression of a self he had buried since his youth. The destruction of this double life was not subtle. It was a bomb detonated in his own living room when his son, Nate, played those secret tapes for the whole family to see. In that moment of horrifying, brutal exposure, the fortress was obliterated. Everything he had built was gone. But from the smoldering ruins of that life emerged something new: honesty. The question the show forces us to ask is a profound one. Can this kind of honesty, born from total destruction, actually lead to real, lasting change for a man like Cal? First, we have to understand what Cal's honesty really is. It is not the gentle, courageous confession of someone seeking forgiveness. It is not a carefully chosen moment of vulnerability. It is what happens when there is absolutely nothing left to lose. The walls are gone, the mask is shattered, and the raw, ugly, unfiltered truth is all that remains. We see this in his stunning monologue in the empty bar after his life explodes. He speaks, finally, without the filter of shame or social expectation. He talks about the suppression of his true self, the societal and familial pressures that forced him into a straitjacket of normalcy, and the deep, festering anger that resulted. This is honesty as a form of release, like pus from a wound that has finally been lanced. It is brutal, selfish in its delivery, and profoundly shocking to those who hear it. But it is, undeniably, the truth of his pain for the first time. This raw honesty does create immediate, dramatic change. The most obvious change is external. His marriage is over. His family structure is destroyed. He loses his home and his standing in the community. He is forced to leave. This is the consequence of his actions and the fallout of his secrets being exposed. But more interesting is the internal shift. The man who was once so controlled, so tightly wound, so threatening in his quiet power, becomes unshackled. In his final scenes, he is seen dancing freely in a country bar, embracing a style of dress that feels more authentic to him, and seemingly exploring his sexuality openly for the first time. He has shed the skin of Cal Jacobs, family man, and is trying on a new one. This looks, on the surface, like real change. It looks like liberation. He is being honest with the world about who he is. But here is the complicated heart of the problem. Honesty about your desires is one thing. Honesty about your damage, your flaws, and your responsibility is something entirely different. Cal's honesty after the destruction is primarily focused on his suffering, his repression, and his liberation. It is a narrative he constructs to explain and, to some degree, justify the wreckage he left behind. What is largely absent from this new honest Cal is a full, deep, and sustained accountability for the profound harm he caused. Yes, he admits to his actions, but does he truly grapple with their impact? Think about the people in the rubble of his destroyed life. His wife, Marcia, who lived a lie for decades, whose whole reality was proven false. His sons, especially Nate, whose own violent, toxic masculinity was shaped in the house of mirrors Cal created. Nate learned from his father that sexuality is about power, control, and secrecy. Cal's secret life was the original sin that poisoned the family well. So, while Cal's late life honesty might be freeing for him, does it heal any of those wounds? Does it repair the damage? In many ways, his honest explosion was just another form of shrapnel, hurting his family in a new way. Real change requires more than just living your truth. It requires making amends, understanding the ripple effects of your behavior, and doing the painful work to help others heal from the damage you caused. We do not see Cal doing this work. His change appears, so far, to be a change of address and a change of clothes, not a fundamental change of heart. Furthermore, Cal's story makes us ask, what is the relationship between honesty and excuse? When he rants in the bar, it feels like a lifetime of justification is pouring out. He is connecting his repressed homosexuality to his anger and his bad actions. There is a real truth in that connection. Repression and shame can cause immense psychic damage that spills onto others. But the show is smart enough not to let that become a simple excuse. Being confused, being in pain, being forced to hide, these are explanations, but they are not get-out-of-jail-free cards. Real change would involve Cal sitting with that distinction. It would involve him saying, "This is why I was the way I was, and it does not absolve me of what I did. My pain does not cancel out yours." We are left unsure if he ever reaches that point. His honesty seems to be the first step on a very long road, but he mistakes it for the destination. So, can honesty after destruction lead to real change? For Cal Jacobs, the answer is, it can be the beginning, but it is not enough by itself. The destruction of his old life created the empty space where something new could possibly grow. His brutal honesty was the act of clearing the toxic debris from that space. It was necessary. You cannot build something stable on a foundation of lies. But what you build in that new space is what defines real change. If all you build is a new life that serves only yourself, a life where you are free but disconnected from the consequences of your past, then that is not true change. It is just a different kind of selfishness. Real, lasting change would be building a life where honesty continues, but expands beyond the self. It would mean being honest about his failures as a husband and father. It would mean seeking to understand, truly understand, the mess he made in Nate's psyche. It would mean offering a genuine, non-self-pitying apology to Marsha. It is the difference between honesty as a weapon of liberation for oneself and honesty as a tool for connection and repair with others. We do not get a final answer for Cal, and that is what makes his story so powerful and so human. We see him take the first, chaotic, imperfect step. The destruction forced a truth that years of quiet misery could not. That truth has given him a chance. But the show asks us to hold a difficult idea that sometimes the person who finally becomes honest is not immediately a hero or even a good person. They are just a broken person who has run out of lies. Whether those broken pieces get glued back together into something better or simply rearranged into a different shape of selfishness depends on what happens after the honesty. For Cal Jacobs, and for so many people in the real world, the hardest work begins after the secrets are told and the smoke clears. The road to real change is long, and it is paved with more than just the shocking, dramatic truth. It is paved with humility, with patience, and with the quiet, unglamorous courage to face the people you hurt and say, without any excuses left to hide behind, "I was wrong and I am sorry." That is an honesty even deeper than destruction, and that might be the only kind that leads to real change.